Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very safe and well in what yet is another therapy session here. It's becoming quite frequent on the Last Word on Spurs, we have to say, unfortunately. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, on Spotify, on Audio Boom, or across a range of different audio platforms. You can, of course, find us across social media. We're on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And for better or for worse, you decide. We're also live on YouTube. Delighted to be having back three returning guests to the Last Word on Spurs. The last time I spoke to this man, Spurs were top of the league, having just beaten Manchester City, and it was effectively Nuno ball. How much did we know? One game in, 3 points later. Great to have George Achillia back on the Last Word on Spurs. George, how are you?
I'm good, man. Well, for the most part, I'm personally good. But yeah, horrible day for Spurs, and I'm sure we'll get into it soon. But yeah, I'm all right, thanks.
It's good to have you here, George. And I'd like to say,
Thank you.
tough circumstances. I feel I have to apologise to bringing guests on now due to the nature of some of Spurs' performances. But there you go. There we have it. The nature of it. Also pleased to have back on the show. Love hearing his insightful opinions. We've got the great Frankie Major back on the Last One on Spurs. Frank, here we go again. Groundhog Day. How are you?
I'm okay, but not okay. Obviously, with that today, it's the result more than anything. Where I live, I'm surrounded by West Ham fans. In fact, my neighbour, who's a season ticket holder, he didn't knock or anything. He posted me a programme about 10 minutes ago of the match. Just posted it through my letterbox. So I'm in for a week of hell. But I hate losing to West Ham, Rick. So frustrated, but we'll get into it in a minute.
We will indeed. And also pleased to be handing out a debut. It could and should be under better circumstances, but like I say, really pleased to welcome to the show broadcaster, sports journalist at TalkSport. We've got Russ Williams joining us. Russ, sorry to do this to you. How are you? Lovely to hear you here.
It's great to be on with Frankie and George and yourself, Ricky, and like all of you and all the listeners and viewers. I love Spurs, but we've all got different opinions, so it's going to be an interesting show. But it's great to be here.
And lovely to have you here, Russ. Very much so indeed. Right, guys. Many will say, where can you start on the back of yet another derby defeat, London derby defeat? Let's start with you, George. Let's come to you because Spurs lose by 1-0 up at obviously at West Ham Stadium. I'm not going to give the name of it, but 4 London derbies so far this season, 4 defeats. There was not a lot in the game, but today Spurs were simply just second best in all of the key areas. How did you see that result? That performance up against West Ham?
I think, I'm going to be honest. Like, when I was there, I feel like I was going to fall asleep. Like, it was, and it's from both sides, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like in the end, a draw probably would have been a fair result because I don't really think they created too much. I think they were actually playing fairly similar to us in that it was just kind of passing it around, waiting for the moments. And when we had the ball, they were sitting back with everyone behind the ball. But then again, like we didn't try and do any sort of killer move or anything like that. It was just, again, I was seeing it pass left and right, and it wasn't entertaining or interesting to watch. But it was good that we just weren't conceding early. And I was like, okay, we got to half time. Goal would have been nice, but you know what? I'll take 0-0. I would have taken it before the game at that point. But then second half, man, it's like you said, it's supposed to be a London derby, and I just didn't see any. The only player I saw passion from was from Romero, and he's only been with us for a couple of months. And it's like, surely the likes of Kane and Son and that should be geared up and ready, and it didn't seem that way today, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think I'd say today it's one of those games where when you look at it, first and foremost, for me, looking at it, motivation should not even be an issue here. It's a London derby. It's West Ham. If you ask any Spurs fan on the calendar, this is a key game for the club. And I have to wonder, come around to you, Russ, Spurs, when you look at it as a whole now, that's 4 London derby defeats by the end of October. And today's another bad look for Nuno after leaving that first 11 at home for Arnhem. And you've got to say 5 of that West Ham team, they played on Thursday night. And you have to wonder, just from a Spurs perspective, what is simply going on at the moment. What did you make of that performance and the display up at, let's say, West Ham?
It wasn't as bad as the Arsenal game, but it was pretty bad. I mean, I sat there watching it. It was like watching a team, and maybe some of our people watching and listening to this won't like this. West Ham seem to be a team that are progressing. And we are a team that are regressing and continuing to do so. The tactics are all over the place. The personnel, there's no desire. There's no Spurs blood pumping through the veins. There's no, accepting of the players that our club plays in a certain way that we are all very familiar with. It is, as Frankie was saying, it was sideways, 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 back. There's no pressing. We can't press anymore. There's just no quick passing, and then you've got Harry Kane who keeps coming back deeper. He should be told, you stay up there on the shoulders of the central defenders. You're there to score goals, but maybe it's frustration. But to me, it's a disjointed mess.
Yeah, I think it's just hard to disagree with that. I mean, Frank, let's come to you. Like Russ says there, for me, just on the eye, it's just simply not good enough. No shots in that second half. And, we have to also ask the question, what on earth was said at half time? West Ham, they didn't actually need to get out a second gear to win that game. There was no passing, no creativity. And the worst thing about all this, Frank, is that I can't see it getting any better. And, as a show, we always try to be rational, and we're not a show that knee jerks. We try and say it as it is. What we see is, like I say, what we try and display and represent in terms of the show. Can you tell me, Frank, it's going to get better on the basis of what we had to watch today?
Well, I don't know, because it's probably our strongest 11, which is the worrying thing. And I don't think we deserved to lose today, but we probably didn't deserve to win. As I said off air, I thought we had the best of the first half. After the first 10 or 15 minutes, we quietened the crowd. We got a foothold on the ball. I know it was a lot of sideways and backwards, but we did create openings, and I thought enough openings to score. I don't know what happened at half time, because the second half, when I expected us to maybe up a level and up the gears, we didn't. And then we only showed that little bit of urgency when we went 1-0 down, which is, what's the point? It's ridiculous. And our biggest issue for me at the moment is the squad depth, because when that game, you're looking at it and they scored a goal, or just prior to that, 65 minutes, it looks a bit flat. You look at the bench, who is going to come off the bench and score you a goal or create an opening? And at the moment, there isn't one. I mean, Dele has done it for us in the past, but over the last 2 or 3 years, he hasn't. His confidence is low. Lo Celso's not exactly prolific. Brian Hill's a kid. We have got one senior striker at this football club, and that is on the board. So who's going to come off the bench and ever score a goal for us? Because if you look at the starting 11 as well today consistently, where are the goals coming from in the 11, let alone the bench? We've got Kane, we've got Son, and who else? Most other clubs, top four or the bigger clubs, or us, we used to have maybe an inside forward or a winger who could contribute with goals, or an Ericsson or Dele when he was at it in that team with that system. We haven't got any of that now. So without Kane or Son firing on all cylinders, we can't score. We're not exactly the most solid. I'll tell you the one alarming thing, Rick, for me about the goal is, we all know, somebody actually put a tweet up, I can't remember the guy's name, but he said, "Dear Nuno, West Ham United score a lot of their goals from set pieces, corners, at the front post." I'm sure you've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've seen this.
You've seen the tweet.
Seen it, yeah.
Be careful. They score a lot of... Cresswell's obviously got fantastic delivery. They target the near post, flick-ons and goals, right?
Yeah.
So he puts Oliver Skipp, who's 5'8", marking the space at the near post. And he's got Lucas Moore on Soucek. I think Eric Dyer possibly should be on Soucek and Lucas Moore at the front post, because if Lucas is at the front post, he wins that header that Skipp misses. And all of these things, you look at it, I'm not a professional coach. You're not a professional coach. This guy on Twitter is not a professional coach. And we seem to know more, as we did about the 4-3-3 and changing the formation and the starting 11. We all seem to know more than our manager at the moment. So I just don't know what to say. I come on here at times, Rick, and I try to be positive and I try to be balanced, but I am so negative about what is in store. It's going to be a long season for me. I'm not into the manager. I'm not into this bunch of players. And I'm a bit concerned it could just be an absolute nothing season for us. And we're just falling further away from the pack, Rick. And I hate to be negative, but I'm being honest.
Yeah, I know I've got you booked in for a lot of shows coming up, Frank, so I will feel your pain with you, believe me. As many as you've got to do, think of me quadrupling that. I tell you, it is going to be a painful season ahead. Jules, just to bring it back round to you, I think one of the things that people are picking up on, we are going to, like I say, put this section towards a Nuno segment because, listen, a lot of the questions, we have over 100 into the show today. I would say over half of those were based on the manager. And I think when you have that element of that amount of questions coming in, you have to have a debate about where we are with the manager. And I know, like I say, we've all got our opinions on him. But George, like I said, the hard thing for me is the lack of fight with the no sense of urgency. Even when we went 1-0 down, it feels at the moment that there's way too many players prepared to drop that kind of substandard performance, and they're getting away with it. And there's nobody pulling them up on this. I mean, how worrying is that? You know, we do say a lot of it's towards the manager, and again, we're going to cover this with Nuno. But from a player's perspective, it almost feels like they can get away with that, knowing they're going to be back in the 11 next week.
Yeah, it's a strange one because obviously when we brought in the players like Højbjerg and co, like they're supposed to be the sort of leaders and the captain-like players that are supposed to pick people up, and you do see it fairly often from him in particular. But again, you're right. There's just no. I feel like a lot of them know that their position is not under threat at all, because I mean we saw what our second team players did on the weekday, and it was pathetic. Like none of them were close to getting anywhere near the first team after that display. So I feel like a lot of the first team players have that room. They just feel comfortable, so that they get away with, okay, I might have a bad game today, but I know for a fact I'm starting next week, so it doesn't really matter. So again, but I don't know if that's again maybe it is a question towards the manager to get them in the right mentality to be able to come out fighting every game, because I'm not really seeing it at the moment, to be honest with you. We're 8 games in, and I haven't seen any sort of really passion fired. Even the games that we won, they didn't seem really like. You didn't really see the players properly fighting for each other in that game and picking each other up in those games. Sorry, yeah.
Russ, the manager. You know, at the moment, many will pick up on the fact, you know, subs are coming far too late. And we know Kane was at fault for the goal. But many feel there's a bigger problem here. You know, the case at Spurs, we've had 0 shots in that second half. And it feels that the element at the moment is that we're not being coached. There doesn't seem to be an actual approach where you can say, you know what, that's the identity. There's a lack of structure. There's a lack of cohesiveness about Tottenham. And it feels like overall there's nothing. You know, when you consider, you know, in all 4 games Spurs have lost those London derbies, we've come up against teams who look far more motivated. And that is the thing that I'm struggling to understand, is the motivational aspect of that. And then when you put into the case also, there doesn't seem to be a tactical plan in place. It's very hard to forgive these kind of performances. Do you agree?
Yeah, totally. But if, you know, the reality is if Tottenham want to be an elite football club, and we all want as fans for it to be an elite football club, to play the Liverpools and Chelseas and the Manchester Cities and actually compete against them and compete for silverware, if the club want that, and that's it called into question, of course, by an awful lot of people, you wouldn't have Nuno Espirito Santo as your manager. With the greatest of respect to him, he's not up to the job. I mean, when he first came to Wolves, he played some attractive football. They were easy on the eye. The vast majority of the players were Portuguese, as we know. They came from the same football culture. He's walked into a fractious dressing room, no doubt about it. He's 7th or 8th choice. That can't make you feel great. He's not a great communicator. He errs on the side of being grumpy. I see no passion on the touchline. And you do have to wonder, Ricky, you're absolutely right. What on earth goes on in that dressing room? Well, I think I can tell you, not a lot.
Yeah. You know what, Frank? And like I say, when you look at it as a whole, Spurs have now lost to Arsenal, Palace, Chelsea, West Ham. And, you know, the concern is that's 4 London derbies, 3 of them against our big rivals, 10-1. 10-1 on aggregate. 10 goals conceded, 1 goal scored in the aspect of those games. Does he have to go, Frank, in your opinion now? Is it untenable, this position for him?
I mean, it's so early into the season, I can't even get my words out, because we're in a position where I don't rate Nuno as a manager. I didn't want him at Tottenham. I didn't think he was a right fit, but I was willing to give him time. From what I've seen so far, it doesn't seem like he can get these players up for it. If you can't self-motivate anyway for a London derby, then you should be playing for a club like Spurs. But if he can't motivate the players for London derbies, which it seems like he can't, West Ham and Chelsea and Arsenal, massive rivals. They're our 3 biggest rivals in London. And they've all beaten us. And we've been limp and pretty pathetic in parts of those games, in most parts of those games. So if he goes, who do we get in? Who would come to Spurs? Who would work under this board? I mean, he's another manager, by the way, who's been left with not enough options, in my opinion. He's not got a striker to bring off the bench and get us goals. So no matter how good a manager you are, if you've got one senior striker and it's not working with that striker on the pitch, who do you turn to? Who do you turn to? And this board have done it year after year after year. They've messed up every football decision they possibly could have. From not signing anyone for 18 months, from 2 stadium moves, which completely debilitated us when we were on the up. We had the unbeaten season at White Hart Lane. We were competing for the league, not for top 4, 4 league titles. And everything they've done since then has been an absolute shambles. Now, obviously, you can appreciate what they've done with the infrastructure of the club. Let's be totally honest here. They put the club in debt. They haven't done it themselves out their own back pockets, out the goodness of their hearts. They've done it to make profits from the future revenue from the football club. They're businessmen, and that's how they built the club and how they've structured things. But since then, they should have just sold the club when they completed the stadium and made the profit that they so greatly want, because we are going nowhere under Ennick. It's just got worse and worse and worse. No credible manager wants to come to Spurs. What players now are going to want to come to Spurs? Harry Kane visibly doesn't want to be there anymore. Let's be totally honest. I'll stick up for Kane every day of the week. He's one of my favourite all-time Spurs players. You can see his body language. He's mentally checked out at Tottenham. So at this moment in time, there's not a lot to be positive about. And if we're going to strip it all back, we can blame Nuno, we can blame the players. It's the board. It's all on Ennick. They had an opportunity to build on all of Pochettino's great work. We were an attraction. We had players like Bruno Fernandes agreeing personal terms with this football club, the Abala. They wanted to come and play for Tottenham Hotspur, and we didn't strike whilst the iron was hot. And unfortunately, whilst we've regressed and we didn't kick on and we didn't want to pay the extra money, we are now in such a mess. It's going to cost far much more money than it would have cost just to pay the extra for those types of players to get us out of this mess. And I just don't think the board have got it in them to make the right decisions on a football level to get us back to the top four. I just don't think they have. And I don't see how it gets better. I don't. With Daniel Levy in charge, I know Joe Lewis is the big boss. He's the man, realistically, who controls everything. It's his money at the end of the day. He's the real owner. But Daniel Levy is in charge of the football decisions, and he doesn't make any good football decisions. So what's the way out of this mess? I don't know. Is Nuno the man for the job? No, he isn't. Personally, if we could convince him, because I think it is a step up, and obviously the Premier League's a huge attraction, I'd try and lobby Ten Hag at Ajax. They've absolutely destroyed their rivals PSV today. I like the football he plays. He's got Haller as the top scorer in the Champions League this season. And you saw what Haller was like in the Premier League, not the greatest of players. So you can see he does improve players. And if we are going to be, if we don't want to drift too far behind, and if I was looking at this from a board point of view, I mean, they know more what goes on in the training ground than I do. And they see behind the scenes stuff. But we can all see the body language of Nuno. Russ is totally exactly right. Yeah. Stands on the sideline. And he's not the most inspiring, is he? He looks grumpy. He actually looks like he doesn't want to be there at times. But Chelsea done it with Frank Lampard. Other clubs have acted quickly and early into a season when they see things aren't going wrong. It's not going to cost a lot to get rid of Nuno. If it was up to me, I don't want to be one of them fans that goes too early or anything like that. I would get rid of him and I'll go for Ten Hag. That's my personal opinion. Before the season becomes a write-off or a total write-off.
Yeah, I mean, I say, you know what, come over to you, George, and this is the thing, as a podcast, I try and always repeat this, you know, I'd like to think on our squad we've got, I want to say we're quite rational, and, you know, we are willing and always, you know, there to give things time, to see things how they progress, but ultimately, I think the hard thing is when you see things aren't working, and you can see a manager that, in my opinion, and I'm looking at it, for me, he looks like he's out of his depth, and, you know, I have said this before, I really, really wanted this to work, you know. Mourinho has always been quite a hard character to warm to, but, you know, with that trophy record he's got, everybody, I'm sure, would have wanted to see if it could work. With Nuno, it feels like we've actually employed a guy that plays very similar tactics to Mourinho, but he hasn't got the trophy list, and I haven't got any confidence to see where it's going to get better. I mean, we got a statement here from Nathan Evans who says, what was the tragedy? Where was the game plan, Nuno? I'd rather take Big Sam than Nuno right now. And to be fair, where Spurs are going at the moment, you may worry that, you know, Spurs could be sliding down that league. But, you know, whilst the season, like Frank says there, it's still in its prime. Spurs are in all competitions. They're not too far off, you know, I would say the Champions League places, even though I know Spurs at the moment, to even be thinking of the Champions League, what am I doing, Ricky? I'm out of my mind even talking like that. But, George, would you look to make a change now whilst we have got Spurs still available in all cup competitions and the season is still at this point very, very early?
The problem is, right, I was like you saying earlier, I try to be as like positive as possible as well, and I'm always willing to give like a manager a season or this, that, and the other. But usually, I kind of see a plan there. And you're right, with Mourinho, I was willing to give him the time of day all day long because you'd hopefully get a trophy at the end of it and get a new manager maybe the following year. We didn't get a chance to see if he could do or not because he got sacked 6 days before a final, which was a complete joke, by the way. I don't care who the manager is. You cannot sack someone 6 days before a final. That's never going to work out. And then at least with, okay, Pochettino, when he first came to Spurs, his run was terrible at the beginning. And in fact, he was like one game away from getting sacked and he managed to save himself. But you could see a plan and an identity and a style of play that he wants to implement. He wants to hold possession. He wants to press quite high, press hard. And it was enjoyable to watch at times. Whereas at the moment with Nuno, I say this pretty much every match day now in my videos, I don't see a plan at all. It's not like we're trying to go out wide and hitting early crosses. We're not even trying to use the wings and the pace we've got to go to the byline and cut back. We're not trying to crowd the middle and go forward. Every single game, all I'm seeing is every player holds onto the ball for about 5 seconds, waits for a 3-yard pass, and then moves on to the next player. And it keeps happening again and again and again. And I just don't see a plan at the moment with Nuno. Previous managers, you could at least see what they were going to do. They had a philosophy. I don't see anything. I honestly don't see anything with Nuno right now. And I never want to jump the gun too early because of like the whole situation with Pochettino. I didn't like Pochettino at the beginning because the results were terrible. But then look what's happened. He ended up being like one of our best managers ever.
Yep.
But I don't know, man. It just doesn't. There's something just doesn't feel right at all with Nuno as a manager at the moment.
Yeah, there's definitely not that connection there. And even when he did win the first 3 games, and I was trying to be very buoyant, and I know we did the opening show against Man City, and we were obviously delighted by the 3 points. I think on that day, as we saw, the almost coming together from that Harry Kane situation really did drive up the fans. But Russ, coming over to you, Spurs, 7th and shot against West Ham today came in the 43rd minute. Yeah. It's the 3rd time this season that they have failed to shoot during a second half. No, it's the old age stat, isn't it? If you're not going to shoot, you're not going to score.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any way forward for you under this current manager, Russ? Do you see anything that kind of hold on to that gives you any hope?
As as the great Jimmy Greaves famously said, football's a funny old game. You never know what's going to happen. But the chances are, and I must admit, I agree with Frank, Ten Hag would play Tottenham football and how as well. But, he'd probably be mad to come to Spurs now, Ten Hag, wouldn't he? Really, if we're honest. I think for Nuno, thinking about it, he was, because the club were panicked, nobody wanted to come. My view is if they were serious and Joe Lewis wanted to give 150 million of his £3 billion fortune because he loves Spurs and he wants to make this new stadium not an empty house full of charity shop furniture, but the best furniture you can buy, he'd have got Conte, right? Whatever we think about Conte, he's a winner. Okay, but they chose not to do that.
Absolutely.
They tried to get Mr. blah, 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 5, 6, 7 managers. And in the end, we got really, in my view, a football sticking plaster over this big pipe that is Tottenham Hotspur. And the water was piling out of it. And there's Nuno. And hey, it worked for 3 games. But now we all know that it probably isn't going to work out. For what it's worth, my opinion is if he makes it through the November international break, I'll be quite surprised as it stands right now. He should be in a situation where he's playing great football with some really good footballers at our football club, where this coming Saturday, he's the one standing in the dressing room and go, lads, it's only Man United.
Yeah.
But it's a huge game, that game, isn't it, at the weekend?
It is a massive game for both clubs now.
I don't think he'll last. I personally don't think he'll last. I've got no ill feeling towards him. He seems a nice enough sort of guy.
Yeah.
I just agree with Frank and George. The fit isn't right for some reason.
For me, I think he just feels like a filler for Pochettino. Like the contracts end at the same time. And it's just, I don't know, man. You're right. If we've got Man U next and then Everton, if both of those games go south, then it's already big danger zone.
I think, George, coming to that, when you say that, I think the Burnley game is huge for the club. This is a competition where you look at what Spurs can possibly win. Everyone would bet at the club they were to win the Europa Conference League. We're not going to win the Premier League. Sad to say, I think we can maybe rule that one out just for now. Unless Spurs go on an incredible run, I think the Premier League might be beyond us. That's sarcasm there, just to be clear. And then, like I say, you look at the FA Cup and the League Cup. Well, those are 2 competitions that really, for Spurs, that's really what they should be aiming for, to get that trophy on board. Like I said, we had over 100 questions come into the last one on Spurs. So I'm going to rattle through just a flavour of some of these that we had in. Gareth McCarter says, have you ever seen a less interested looking team in 4 London derbies? Ryan Smith says, once again, Nuno gets it wrong. Kane looking like he's ready for a trick or treat and nowhere to be seen. Lucas looking like a headless chicken. January cannot come quick enough. We need a second striker and creative midfielder. Steve Bunyan says Nuno is too negative. No shots in the second half is completely unacceptable with Kane, Son and Moor on the pitch. Too many, as Frank said earlier, backward sideways passing. No one running off the ball, breaking the lines. It's dire. And they had a week off. That's a great point he makes there. Darren Kay said, as I said last week, I am really doubtful in terms of Nuno's in-game management. He reacted very slowly, substituting players in the same positions. The formation didn't change too much. Lack of alternative ideas. Needs to be proactive and estimate well during the in-game. And again, it's hard to disagree with that. Nick Flanagan here says, what is our game plan? No urgency, no change-up. When we thought Kane wasn't interested anymore, here we go again. I'm not sure Nuno is the man for the job. Andrea says, surely Nuno's plan going forward isn't everybody in front of the ball to walk around or stand still. Kept going narrow in the middle for the 93 minutes. A better plan and we could have actually won this game. David Williams says, are the current players not capable of playing a higher tempo game? Is this why our style is slow, stodgy, struggling to see any direction or intent on the field? Just on that point, Russ, coming over to you. In terms of the way the players are approaching these games, does that all come down to Nuno, or do you think in a way, because had Mourinho as the previous manager, it does take some time in order to actually implement a philosophy?
I think a lot of them are playing with a hangover from Mourinho because the football that we watched, particularly towards the end of his tenure, wasn't particularly great. I mean, it was boring, wasn't it? I mean, it was boring the pants off people. I mean, I have to say, I agreed with nearly every comment that was made there, because these, the people that are watching this and listening to the Last Word on Spurs love their football club and they know what we should be. You need a strong person. There's a debate going on, isn't there, right now about whether Solskjaer is the right man for Manchester United. He's in charge in arguably the biggest club in the world. We want to be in that group. We flirted with it. I just don't see Nuno and his tactics and his methods and a lot of these players being capable of doing that. Yes, they were good, but they're older now, 3-4 years older. The pace isn't quite there anymore. And then there is the question of Harry Kane. And for me personally, incidentally, with Harry Kane, we should have a statue of him outside the ground now if he never kicked another ball for Spurs. He's been that good. But, when you get somebody who's a family member being your agent and you're negotiating with Daniel Levy, and an experienced agent would have said, we want a break clause here if a bid comes in, and they would have got that for him, right? But his brother didn't do that. That's why Harry's in a pickle now, because he didn't have that. And, I tend to agree that he has the demeanor of somebody who is either really, really, really peed off, or he genuinely, and I think he's a hell of a pro and a brilliant player, he just doesn't want to be at the club anymore. He feels that the gentleman's agreement that apparently he had, or his brother said that he had, which incidentally are not worth the paper they're not written on, he feels let down. And it's a major problem when you've got a talent like that who needs to score 20 plus goals for us. I know he scored a few this season, but only one in the Premier League. And it's, once again, we come back to, it's a mess on the pitch, off the pitch. It's just a mess. Stick to the football. The NFL, gigs, don't care about it. We're a football club. That's how they'll pay off their debt. And incidentally, ENIC paid 22 million, I think, for our football club. Well, if they sold it tomorrow, they clear the debt and still do rather nicely. Thank you. So,
very hard to do what you're saying there, Russ. And a lot of people I say in agreement with you in the comments there. George, just for fair balance on the show, like I say, we always like to try and provide two sides of the story. There's a comment on there from Good Beats Ents who says, think we are expecting miracles. Nuno going nowhere soon. Could be na-na by the end of this show, I tell you. Today's game, we dominated. Conceded the goal from a set piece. Dominated West Ham. We had chances, but final pass not there. Is that fair, George? Can you understand where some fans may have felt today we dominated that game and deserved more than the 1-0 defeat?
I can't lie to you, I was there and I did not feel like we dominated them at all. I feel like we may have had more possession at times, but again, we were going nowhere with it. It wasn't like, it's not the way City do it or Liverpool do it, where they have the possession and they're gunning forward every time, or they're creating so many threats. It was just the case of, we probably should have done a lot better in some of our chances. We did have a good couple of chances, but in no way at all did I feel like we dominated them. I think a draw probably would have been a fairer result. I think both teams played pretty similarly. We just had a couple more chances than they did. But yeah, well, just on what Russ said, like I agree with most of it, but the thing is, I don't mind any of the NFL stuff and things like that, as long as I know for a fact, like I know that the money that we're making from that is getting implemented back into the football team. Because at the end of the day, it's all well and good having this amazing stadium, or whatever, but if the football team's not succeeding, we're not going to grow anywhere. So I'm just hoping, and obviously the money's never going to come in straight away. It's just not how it works. I'm just hoping we do start being able to see the benefits of this. But the football, you're right, it has to be the main focus. And if we're making so much money off of all these events and whatever, then we've got to start seeing that in better players and better managers at the club.
Totally agree. After the game, I mean, the post-match comments from Nuno, again, I mean, make your mind up on what he says here. On the case of no second half shots, he said, West Ham defended the box with a lot of men. We should have moved the ball faster. Always difficult when there are a lot of men behind the ball. Difficult to find the spaces and the gaps. On his lack of substitution, he says, the boys were playing good. Then we made the changes. He was asked if there was any positives at all. He said, not too many, but when you lose a game like today, I believe that we were the better team. The only positive is that our aspects to improve will guide us to winning more football matches. Frank, question in here. This is from Dan at Dan Bookie TV. He says, do you think that Nuno has the skill set to make any of our players better? I've seen progression in Skip and Dyer, but as for everybody else, they look demotivated and clueless on the pitch. How can we trust a 10th choice manager to pave the way for the likes of Scarlett, Divine, etc.? Thoughts on that?
Well, again, I'm not too confident in Nuno, and I hate to be totally negative, but I can't see him improving his team or his squad. You could argue that he probably needs a few more of his own players to implement his playing style, but it's all just very strange, Rick, how everything's set up. I mean, those comments, by the way, are we forgetting that Soucek had the best chance of the game with that header? That was an absolute sitter prior to the goal, and we didn't have a shot on target. We didn't have a shot in the second half. So, okay, we had a pretty steady first half, but we did dominate the game and deserve to win. As George said, a draw probably would have been a fair reflection. But the whole thing is a bit of a mess to me, because it was obvious and it's public knowledge that this was our 7th or 6th choice managerial target. This is a guy whose best success in English football has come from playing free at the back. He's now coming to a club where he's tried to play 4-3-3. He's now playing 4-2-3-1, which I think suits the players he's got. But this isn't Nuno's style. This isn't what you would call Nuno ball. He's a 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 manager. So the whole fit is just so uncomfortable from start to finish, from who he is, from the style of football he plays to the style of football the fans want. He done okay with some of the youngsters at Wolves. He brought through Neto, Dinin Podence and a couple of others there, Max Kilman. But I don't trust Nuno to take this football club on to the next level. Again, it doesn't help that he's got one arm tied behind his back. The fact that they've left him with one senior striker. I know I keep going on about it, but I cannot get over it. We go back to obviously the stadium and the revenue that it generates, and hopefully that goes back into the team. Can we trust that to happen? And if we do spend the money, will it go into the right players? Because it hasn't really until we got Paratici in. That's yet to be seen. But we misspent a lot of money a couple of years ago. And I just can't fathom. I mean, these guys are businessmen that own our football club. Joe Lewis he's a financial guy. He's a trader by trade, a spread better. He's got all these investments and these property investments. Surely it's logic that when your business is slowing down like ours is, or underperforming, he could give the club a business loan of £150 million, or he could have in the summer. We could have used that to buy we need another winger who adds goals and assists. We need another holding midfielder, because if anything happens to Højbjerg or Skip, we're in big trouble. We needed another striker. There are positions that we need filling. Why could Joe Lewis not loan the club money and then he can get it back? He's in charge of the club. There's no way, if the revenue and the infrastructure of the club is going to generate this revenue that we keep being told it's going to generate, there's no way he's not going to get that money back. So where's the ambition? Because he's got the ability to get that money and spend it on these players, but he just has refused to for whatever reason. So what does that show us when you're refusing to do that? You're appointing your 7th choice manager. The whole fit at the moment around this club is just an absolute mess. And as Russ rightly said as well, when your star man clearly wanted to leave and looks like he doesn't want to be there, put all these variables together, and it's a bit of a mess at the moment, Rick. So to answer your original question, again, I hate to be negative. I don't think Nuno's the man for this football club. I can't see him taking us up to the next level.
Yeah, I've actually got a question to ask Russ in terms of the ball. Before I do, Tim Man on the screen there says a question that we're all trying to work out. Guys, why have you not replaced Ericsson? This team has zero creativity. For me, this should have been a priority along the strike. I think we can all probably say amen to that. We all agree that Spurs in that transfer window to not have gone out and got an alternative striker and to have, again, not looked at trying to bring in a creative midfielder. That's the ultimate downfall. And it depends how many points are going to cost Spurs between now and January, even if we do get to January and do actually do that, which, again, who knows? But Russ, this is the question I wanted to ask you. It's coming from John Omar Gunnarsson, who says, it's hard to be patient with this squad. They have their moments, and for a short period, we think we're progressing in the right direction. But then we get games like today. Do you see any signs of improvement, and do you see any sense of direction under the current board?
No, not really. I mean, Oliver Skip, I watched him play today. He's coming on. He's, as Frank said, he's definitely improved. But last season, he was playing in the Championship. Yes, he got promotion, but his mates are getting battered every week. So, he's not that good, but could get a lot better. We need surgery, in my opinion, to our playing staff. That costs a lot of money. Then it comes down to the owners, as Frank was saying. Is there a willingness to give, the club money by way of a loan, maybe, or maybe even a charitable donation from Joe? Probably not. And frankly, we need to ship a few out to get some money in. In my opinion, I think Doherty should go. I think Dele Alli is done at Spurs. I worried at the time when he had a clothing range before he'd done anything in the game. I've been proved right. I think he needs a fresh place to go. Sorry, Dele Alli fans, but we all have our opinions. I think Davinson Sanchez, it's questionable whether he's going to ever do anything good for us. The Harry Winks, local lad, we loved him when he came through. I don't think he's going to make it at Tottenham for whatever reason. And these players should, for their own good, be moving on. All right. I'm not saying sack them, kick them out the club, but we need to get some fresh blood in, as the boys have been saying. And I totally agree with the person who said we need a creative midfielder. We need a locksmith. Ericsson wasn't the best locksmith, but he was pretty good to play that ball to Harry Kane, to Son, to anybody else in the team when we're playing quick, good passing football, just to see what other people don't see. We need somebody like that. I've said it for 4 seasons, really. I would have replaced Ericsson. So that's how mad I am with somebody who could really do it. But I think we need him now.
Yeah, I mean, just on the ball there, Crackers, obviously, part of our panel on the Last Word On Spurs is, does the money earned from the events even get put back into the football team or used to service the debt Enoch have loaded against the club? Again, massively questionable. Just in terms
this
of...
just to interrupt, this is what I said. This is what I just said. Can we trust this board to put the 100% of the revenue generated or the profit generated from these events into the playing squad? And the answer is no. I don't. I don't know if I speak for everybody, but I don't trust them to do that.
Like I say, I think at the moment, Frank, by where we are as a football club and where we're heading, it's very hard at the moment to be certain on anything to do with Tottenham. From the playing squad to the board to our actual recruitment model, to our actual playing style. Where is this club ultimately going? Nuno, like I said, after the game, he said, was he concerned by the nature of now losing 4 derbies and scoring just the one? He said it's always frustrating. A London derby means that, to our fans a lot. We're not able to win it. I'm disappointed because it hurts them. And my God, it does hurt us indeed. But we are going to go for our first break of the show. Taking you into this break, you are going to hear, if this doesn't change at all, from our current Spurs head coach. For our listeners on audio, you're going to hear from Nuno Espirito Santo. And you're also going to hear from Harry Kane giving their thoughts on the back of today's defeat in the London derby to West Ham. And then, let's say, after this break, we will be discussing some of the players' performances. For our watching audience on YouTube, there's over nearly 450 of you watching us live. Thank you ever so much. I would ask what you're doing with yourselves, what therapy we're putting you through. So, like I say, thank you so much. We're going to get into that right now. I got to say, ironically, ahead of this game, George, coming over to you, Spurs being Spurs, we rested the entire 11 for a cup game in preparation for a league game, and then go on to lose both. But to rub salt in the wounds even more, Vitesse, our team in the week we played, they actually lost 2-1 today to a newly promoted team called Go Ahead Eagles. And,
Brilliant.
If you leave your entire team at home for a midweek game in Europe, they all know they're definitely starting. And again, questionable as to whether that's going to be working. And I just wonder, Jordan, you look at that lineup and the way we decided that decision to rest the 11 in the week to then play a new 11 at the weekend. Does that create in itself, George, almost zero desire, edge or competition in the squad? Is that a worry for you? If we're going to rest 11 players, fresh 11 coming in, you wonder from a competition perspective, do the players actually have that motivation that if they do make a mistake, they know they're going to be dropped?
To be honest with you, I think for this week in particular, I didn't mind they didn't take any of the 11. I feel like it was, obviously in hindsight, you could say it wasn't, but I thought it was the right thing at the time, because at the end of the day, even though it didn't work out, obviously in the end, the quality we've got in the second team players is still enough to beat Vitesse on Thursday, and they just didn't do it. And I thought, obviously, coming into West Ham, we've seen issues before of like Romero not being able to play the whole game and Ndombele not being able to play a whole game before because who else is Bergwijn coming back from injuries and all this and the other. I thought resting them wasn't a bad thing. The problem is, from resting them, you'd expect them to come out today with a lot of fight, with a lot of energy. And then for the second team players I played on Thursday, they've got to think, all right, well, I need to prove myself on the Thursday, have a worldie of a game, score 3 goals, do whatever to prove that you should be selected for the weekend or for the coming weeks. And again, didn't really see that from the second team players. And I feel like after today, players like Lo Celso probably have more of a chance of playing. Tanganga over Emerson's probably another shout as well. But again, coming back to what Frank said earlier, the fact that we haven't got a second striker and we're relying on a 17-year-old to be our backup is a joke, because when Kane isn't playing well, he's just guaranteed to start every week because we don't have that other option. Like, we're not going to play Son up top instead of Kane. That's just not going to happen. And I feel like we missed the trick with Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina, I think it was, who is now not agreeing to sign a new contract. So I think he's got to be a priority target in January to try and bring in.
Somebody hasn't watched us, George, recently.
No, I've been saying this since the summer, and I agreed with the whole Ten Hag stuff before. I thought he was the perfect manager. I was every day on Twitter. I was like, get Ten Hag in now. It fits perfectly and everything. But I don't know. I'm really just not seeing the desire from any of them right now. There's maybe a handful of, not even a handful, maybe a couple of players. Like I think Romero and Skip today probably showed a little bit of fight, but again, the rest of them just didn't look like they cared, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, let's come over to you. As expected, that 11 were left at home midweek and started again. Absolutely no place on the bench for Harry Winks after his heartfelt interview in Arnhem. And I think with Harry Winks, I think we all probably are in agreement now that for his own benefit of his career, probably is time to move on. But was you surprised by that 11, Frank? Is that what you were roughly expecting? Bearing in mind we knew Nuno left that 11 behind to train with Ian Cathro, his assistant manager, who of course has just given birth to a little one. Any surprise at all, Frank, ahead of the game?
I agree with George. I don't think it was a bad thing doing what he done to give them a week to prepare, because it was a big game, win and go fourth, which West Ham have done today. And I did feel, although throwing 11 players together that have never played together before, which they hadn't on Thursday, it's always going to be a bit disjointed, but I did feel that there was enough quality to beat a team like Vitesse, who are nowhere near a top-level Dutch side. And what tier is the Dutch league in Europe? Is it 7th or 8th, but strongest league? You'd think that side would have had enough quality to get a result, or at least a point. But it didn't, and obviously it didn't work out. And in true Spurs fashion, we ended up losing both games, which is just typical Spursy, really. But I didn't disagree with what Nuno done. I felt that, again, it was probably a good idea to give them a week to work on shape and whatever. But not North London derbies, all London derbies, they're not just about quality. They're about passion and effort and desire. They are. And a lot of games are tight, 1-1s, 2-1s, or when we're not involved anyway. But you get a lot of these cagey tight games, which it was today for a long period of time. And unfortunately, we didn't show enough of that. We didn't show enough character, desire, hunger. Not enough of the players did on the pitch today. And that is the most damning and alarming thing. Obviously, passages of play, putting a team together, that's the hard part of coaching and football. Putting a unit together to gel and playing the philosophy of the manager and what they want. but putting effort in. I think we gave away 4 fouls all game. Is that right? Is that what I read?
Yeah, I think you're right.
In a derby against West Ham, you should be.
Yep.
I'm not saying be cynical, but you should be clattering people. And George is
Yep.
right. The only one that had
Let them know you're there. Let them know you're there.
A bit of devil in them today was Romero, and he's been at the club 5 minutes. And I don't think he deserved to be booked for that incident. Was it Lanzini or Benrahma who was on the floor? Or Fornals, possibly, I can't remember.
Fornals, yeah.
Yeah, where he told him to get up. That wasn't a booking, by the way. But I don't mind that bit of devil in these big games. Of course not.
And we want more of that. We want more of that.
You make yourself hard to play against when you're a bit spiteful and you're solid and you're strong. And we didn't see that aggression today. We didn't see that solidarity. We didn't see any of that. And that is the most alarming thing for me. And we've been here so many times before with the crux of this squad. So we've just got to hope that Paratici knows what he's doing. We continue to with this rebuild that we've tried in the summer. We do more of the same. As Russ said, there are a few players that need to go. We all know who needs to go. Let's be totally honest. The 5 or 6 that need to be moved on. Every single fan knows now. And we just need to hope that we can trust this guy to get quality in and improve the squad. And get the right characters in, Rick. That's massive because we haven't got enough of them in the squad at the moment. We need leaders and characters.
Totally agree. I mean, how many years, Frank, have we sat here and said about leaders and characters? I mean, I just feel like, we're in the same cycle of talking about that. Richie says there, we're going to chat about the possible penalty. Yes, we are. Russ has come around to you because Tunja Ndombele wanted a penalty early on following Kurt Zuma's challenge on him, but it wasn't given. On the eye, I'll be honest with you, I looked at the time for me, it could have been a pen. I was surprised it going to VAR. We didn't get it. But thoughts on that and overall in Ndombele's performance, where for him on the day, I thought he pressed again. He was creating chances in that final third. Passing wasn't really enough to help Spurs get going. What did you make of it overall? Should we have had a penalty in Ndombele's performance for you?
Well, I'm a Spurs fan. It was a penalty, wasn't it? But,
we're all going to say that, especially in a derby at the moment.
Jermaine Defoe said on the TV coverage at half-time, he said, I've seen him given. It's an old cliche, but he would know, playing in the position that he plays in and played for us, obviously. I think it could have been given, but it wasn't. And so we just got to get over it. On to Ndombele. What an enigma this man is. Unbelievable brilliance. To me, he looks really tired when he plays, and he can't be. He's got to be fit. And I think he's had a few issues. Back in the summer, we were chatting before we came on that maybe he wanted to move away from the club. That seems to have been settled. But we all know that in there is a magnificent footballer. Is he a man who can take control of our midfield and play the balls that we were talking about earlier? Well, the jury is out, but it's nearly going home because he's got to start doing it soon. But I love watching the little outrageous things that he does. But I think he needs more end product.
Yep. We've only been saying it for the last 2.5 seasons. Wonderful player. If he could do 90 minutes, I know Frank, George, we've been here before about this subject. It'd be lovely. I do want to pick up on one player, George, you brought up earlier, Christian Romero, up against today the power of Antonio. Defended really well against the Hammers frontman at times, although he was out-muscled on a couple of the occasions. He went on another one of his marauding runs in that second half, but his teammates couldn't finish things off in the box. Ultimately, I think another decent shift for him on a real testing day. Thoughts on Romero? Do we just need to find him? I keep saying this, George. For me, I say it every week at the moment. I think we need to find that centre-back to pair alongside him.
Yes,
like we
100%.
had, Alderweireld and Vertonghen. We haven't quite got that player yet. And, I keep saying Joe Rodon, who's on the bench, he must be looking at this thinking, when am I going to get a chance? And I'm not saying Joe Rodon's the next forthcoming, king of a centre-back for us. But I just think at the moment, the Romero-Dyer partnership, to me, doesn't look like it's got a natural leader in there that they both know what their jobs are. It just doesn't feel for me accomplished yet. The way Alderweireld and Vertonghen, they knew their partnership, they knew what their strengths were, they knew what their weaknesses were. Do you want to see that with Romero?
Oh, 100%. And to be, like you said, I think he did well again today, given the circumstances. And he's a player that excites me. He voted Syria defender of the season last year. Unbelievable player, still quite young as well. And you're right. I was shocked that we didn't get. We all knew we needed to get 2 centre backs in because look at last season. We know for a fact that Dyer and Sanchez just aren't it. They may have fought us a little bit in the first 3 games, getting the clean sheets and whatever. But look, the reality is Dyer isn't even a centre back. He's a defensive midfielder that's kind of lost his legs, and Sanchez just isn't good enough. And I feel like Romero is a very aggressive centre back, and if you like when you analyze his game and stuff, he's obviously on the right hand side. He tends to push forward and gets on the back of players a lot. So for me, I feel like we need to get a sort of commanding left-footed centre back to play alongside him. That's sort of sits back a little bit more. I think like obviously we're not going to get him, but a Laporte type player I think would be the sort of perfect fit to go alongside him, because like you said, the Vertonghen and Alderweireld had just that perfect balance of being able to play in that two in the middle. And we're just missing that. I think Romero is a great player. I'm definitely excited to see how he does for me. And just on the thing about Rodon, I don't understand. I mean, he starts for Wales every single time. Okay, he plays the odd Conference League game or Cup game for us. I think for the most part, normally looks quite good, yet never ever gets a shout for the first team at all. With especially how poor our defense can be at times. I don't understand why he hasn't been tested there, maybe alongside Romero. Maybe there's stuff we're not seeing. Maybe he's not applying enough in training. Who knows? But I think for me, alongside getting maybe like another striker, I think again in January, we need another top quality centre back alongside Romero, because we can't be carrying on another full season trying to rely on Dyers and Sanchez's and whatnot. We just can't do it.
Well, we've seen, haven't we? We've just seen it's not good enough. Frank, we've got a question that came in here to the show. This is from Alfonso Frias, who says, were you guys as annoyed as I was watching Romero going above and beyond while being one of the few guys running forward in that second half from his centre-back spot? Meanwhile, all the Spurs' midfield play was very much pedestrian, sideways passing. I know we've said that a lot this season. Frank, are you feeling for Romero at the moment? I mean, he's come from a side that in Atalanta. I know you're a big fan of him.
I told you, didn't I? When I came on the show earlier in the season, I said he's going to be a top player for us. And I saw a few comments on Twitter, and I think Spurs Twitter could be a strange place at times, extremely over negative, saying that he's being very kind.
You're being very kind there, Frank.
But he's being bullied by Antonio. There were two occasions. Once where the only thing he's got to cut out is he does come for every duel. And I think he's got to learn when to stand off at times and when not to come and when to come. But there was only one occasion where it was a shoulder to shoulder in the first half, and Antonio does that to 99% of the defenders he comes up against. He's built incredibly. He's a powerful unit, but he was brilliant today, Romero, in my opinion. He's got fight. He's got that Argentinian passion that those centre-backs seem to have, don't they? They seem to have that, as I said earlier, that bit devil in them. And he's committed. And I think if we had more players like that with that spirit and that desire, we probably wouldn't have been beaten today. But yeah, it was frustrating because you had Højbjerg and Skip. And I didn't think Skip done bad today as well. I thought he played well, Oliver Skip. And I do like Oliver Skip. But they were literally sitting on top of our two centre-backs. We had the full-backs pushed high and wide, and then everyone else was narrow. And I think at times, Romero was just getting frustrated because when gaps opened up, the two midfielders, I know we play with two sort of pivots, really. I know Højbjerg sort of gets on a bit, but Skip sits. But they were reluctant to ball carrying and utilise them spaces and go on maybe a little mazy run every now and again. And he just took it into his own hands. And I think it was frustrating to see he had to do that as a centre-back. And we've got three men in midfield who were reluctant to do that today. And that's an issue. And like George said, in an ideal world, we do need another centre-back. But we also, as I said, we need another holding midfielder. We need a creative midfielder. We need a winger. And we need a striker. We are literally 5 or 6 players off.
I can say and a new manager.
Yeah. But we are. But that's what we need. If I'm saying it depends on where we want to be as a football club. If we want to try and break into that monopoly again of the top 4, where Manchester United are miles off it at the moment, that's what should have been addressed. I know you can't do it all in one window, but that's what needs to happen now over the next 2 windows. Yeah,
you bring United up there. Sean Hell on the screen says, prediction, Conte in opposition dugout next week, Mason and Howe in ours the following week. Do you know what, with Spurs, nothing would quite surprise me at all. Nothing would. But Russ, steering the show back around to you.
Yeah,
I think it's time to talk about Harry Kane. Harry Kane, the enigma of Kane, the situation around Kane doesn't go away. Of course, for the West Ham goal today, Antonio stuck out a leg in front of Kane to poke West Ham in the head in front of a corner. Just wasn't good from Kane overall. Didn't move. He looked off the pace in general today in every aspect of the game. Russ, where are you in Harry Kane? You said earlier that, if it was you, there'd be a statue of him outside the football club.
There would.
Has that affected or tarnished his reputation over the summer? And, where do you ultimately see the rest of his Spurs career heading as we stand with Harry Kane?
Well, I mean, if any of us go into work and we've had a meeting with the boss, and we've got an agreement with the boss that if something happens, you can do that and I won't stand in your way, and then it completely goes the other way, you feel betrayed, don't you? and you feel disappointed. I think with Harry Kane, the whole situation was with Manchester City, they didn't want to pay 160 million quid. They just didn't think that Harry Kane was worth that. Now, the goals we know are so vital, and he's brilliant at them when he's on his game. But he also is susceptible to ankle injuries, as we know. So, teams shedding out that kind of money, I think, are looking at all aspects of it. For some reason, Guardiola didn't want to do it. They spent 100 million on Jack Grealish, and Harry stayed at the club. Nobody else came in for him, by the way, did they? Nobody.
No.
That's interesting. Now, I know post-COVID, it's very difficult for football clubs to spend the sort of telephone numbers that they were spending before, but there wasn't really a rumour that, Real Madrid are interested, or Bayern Munich. I mean, I found that quite interesting. So we are left with Harry Kane, and he's left with us. And, do we believe what we're being told, that he's going to stay for the whole of this season? Well, we'll find out in January. I just want to see him enjoying his football again, because I think we all agree that, or most people would, that he doesn't seem to be enjoying his football, and it is affecting his game. And we want him back to his best, don't we?
Russ, just very quickly on that, just to pick you up, will Harry Kane enjoy his football again for you in a Spurs shirt? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it sounds like a Nuno bashing session, this, and it isn't, because I like all of us. We're
just trying to be honest. We're trying to be honest.
If he became the greatest Spurs manager between now and Christmas, we were scoring hundreds of goals and not.
We'd be delighted. Yeah,
we would, and we'd be thrilled for him, right? But we all have this kind of football fan feeling it's probably not going to work out. And sorry, Nuno, if you're watching this, a different manager, a quality manager, which, will Daniel Levy even get the chance to bring one in? Probably not. I think that could change the mindset, galvanize him a little bit. He knows that in the dressing room, there's people there who are unhappy they're not playing, and stuff is happening, and that some of his mates are probably going to have to leave the club. And he feels, disaffected with Daniel Levy. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't know about you guys, I would as well. Yeah. Really, if we wanted to go, let's be fair.
I think, today what you said there, Russ.
Has said, I'm not accepting anything less than that, and no one else has come in for you, Harry. Yeah. So what are you going to do? I think he's that brutal. He would have said, wouldn't he, to Harry Kane when he gave him the big long contract, we're going to make you financially secure for the rest of your life and your family and their kids. Probably true. Good luck to him. He's got the most precious commodity in football, goals, right? But his agent should have sat down and said, yes, but Mr. Chairman, I want this, this, and this, because he's got goals in him that will win you things. And if our chairman and board and owners were serious about winning things, really serious, that would have carried weight, and the argument and the agreement would have been different, and Harry would not be in the position he's in now. I can't understand people getting back. I just can't understand fans who turn on him.
No, you're spot on there, Russ. And I think, like you said there, had Harry had in, a top-class manager, dare I say, a Conte of that ilk, I think he would be giving it time. I think he would actually sit there and think, what, he gave it time with Mourinho, because Mourinho was in, and, he was told, this guy, we're bringing this guy in to win trophies. And I've said this before with Conte, and we said this elsewhere, Russ, the minute you go in and talks with Conte, and it's actually been broadcasted, and it's out in the public, I don't care. You have to get that done, because anybody bar Antonio Conte is going to be a step down. And that's obvious. Nuno was in talks with Palace, in talks with Everton. You look at the level of those clubs. Spurs were in a Champions League final, 18 to 24 months ago. The rapid decline, like I say, it's hard to bear. But George, just come around to you. We've got a question here from Savaraj BG, who says, do you think that Kane is still actually playing for us? I struggle to remember one good move he did for us during this game. To me, he's looking more and more finished. Now, when I was typing up the notes, part of me thought, what? Out of all the players there, and I'm not defending Kane for his actions in the summer, I thought there was actually worse players than Kane on the pitch today. But naturally, for that goal, for me, his lazy passing and his non-concentration whilst marking their most dangerous player at a set piece, it doesn't feel for me like he is all there. So where are you on Harry Kane for you? Does he have a long-term future at the club? Will he be here beyond the summer?
I mean, obviously, like today was terrible, especially by his standards. But at the end of the day, just rewind back a week, and we all thought Harry Kane was back. He was playing much better against Newcastle. He got a great goal again to try and get him off the, just get him going again. So I don't think, for me personally, I think there's quite a lot of factors that are coming into his frustrations. I think not having that sort of creative midfielder that can get him the ball at the times has fed into it as well. I don't think it's necessarily just the situation of, oh, I didn't get my move away, so I'm going to be terrible now. Because let's be honest, Kane wants to smash that Shearer record. He is going to want to get goals regardless of whether it's Spurs, City, United. As long as it's in the Premier League, he's going to want to get goals regardless. The problem is, we've said this obviously so much today already, but there are other issues on the pitch where who's going to get the ball to him? There have been plenty of games that he's played so far, and I'm thinking, well, there's a reason why he comes deep to collect the ball so often. It's because there is no one else, apart from maybe Son, that can actually get the ball to him. We don't have that Eriksen type player. If we did sign Bruno Fernandes a couple of years back, we would have had that. And just quickly on like the manager situation before, you're right. I think if we had a higher quality manager, look what Mourinho did. All right, Mourinho had other issues with other players and so on and so forth, but he actually made Kane explode with the amount of goals and assists that he got from having one of the world's best ever managers at his disposal. And now we've gone to a manager who finished 12th and then 7th and 7th with Wolves or whatever it was. Where's Kane going to get the motivation to start doing what he did in last season? He's not going to get the right coaching from Nuno to then explode the way he did last season as well. So I think, to be honest, there's a lot of things that are frustrating Kane right now. And I definitely think he can come back from it, because whether that be a top quality manager, maybe he just needs to find his feet in a few games. We've got a fairly easy run coming up if he can get some more goals. Look back at the 16-17 season. I don't think he scored in the first 4 games, like the whole of August and a bit of September. Ended up winning the Golden Boot and scoring 20 plus goals anyway. So it's not too late for him at all. I just think he needs to kind of find that motivation on and off the pitch, whether that be making some better signings in January, whether that means getting a much better manager in. I don't know. But I think there's quite a lot of factors feeding into his frustrations at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, coming over to you, and I think it's important there to give that angle which George has picked up there. You know, that ultimately Kane scores that goal against Newcastle last week, a really, really good finish. And we're all sitting there saying, he's back. Harry Kane's the man. You know, that kind of goal, it's typical Kane-esque. And, you know, then you kind of have the other side of the coin that says, you know, it does feel that a little bit depressing that keeping Kane in the summer felt like a real win. But, you know, it's games like today where almost it's not like he's even there. It's really hard to find a balance here. Can you find me that balance, you know, on Kane? Should we be optimistic? Because I know you're one of Kane's biggest fans. I think you said, you know, people will be a fool to question his goal scoring ratio this season. He will get goals. Are you still confident on that for you?
Well, you can't ever doubt Harry Kane, but I'm glad George said that about Jose Mourinho, because I get pelters. And if you're a Tottenham fan and you say that Jose Mourinho got the very best out of Harry Kane, bearing in mind, in the Pochettino era, he had Dembele, he had Eriksen, he had a prime Dele Alli, who was at it then. So he had a better team around him. Jose was good for Kane. And I think you're totally right. His head went...
And Son as well. Son as well.
And Son as well. Of course, he changed their game. I mean, Kane, for the first time since 1994, Andy Cole at Newcastle, top goal scorer, top assist maker. That is crazy to get that in such a hard league, to achieve both of those in the Premier League. And I think that after they sacked Jose 6 days before a cup final, because he loved and adored Jose Mourinho, the post-Mourinho comments he has made about, I will always be in touch with him.
Yep.
He's one of the best managers I've ever had, etc. I think he was devastated because he felt that he had a chance to win something with Mourinho. Then that chance went, and the way it was done was an absolute shambles. Then there's rumours of a man like Conte, who I was actually having this chat with my friend before I came on. I was saying that if Conte had came to Spurs, I think that would have kept him happy, because he's a proven winner. He'd probably look at him and think this is a superstar winning manager, ex-Premier League winning manager in recent years, Serie A winning manager, and all the rest of it. It would give him that extra energy and a bit of revitalisation from going flat post-Mourinho. So I totally agree with what you're saying. But what also doesn't help Kane is the fact that both fullbacks, I mean, Emerson, we haven't seen enough of him yet, but I haven't seen him put any good crosses in for Tottenham yet. Reguilon's crossing today was awful, barring one, which was to Kane for the header that Fabianski made quite a good save. We're not getting enough crosses into the box for Harry, when he used to have Trippier, who was a fantastic crosser with the ball, and he used to score a lot of goals off Trippier.
Yep.
We haven't got that Eriksen style I love that word you used there, Russ, locksmith. We haven't got a locksmith who can pick them beautiful through balls and set them free. We're not creating enough chances for Harry Kane. And outside of Kane and Son, Tanguy, again, enigma's the right word. We don't know. We don't know what he's going to do this season. But is there a player in that team that sits behind Kane that's going to get 15 odd assists like Eriksen used to get? I can't see it.
Absolutely.
So who's to provide for Kane? There's no one to provide for him.
Very quickly, we had Bale and Vinicius, who, maybe Vinicius didn't do in the Prem games or whenever he came on, but he got us a lot of goals in the Europa League, which is what we could have done with.
We must say, Bale, whatever you say, Bale and Vinicius, you're taking 26 goals in all competitions out of a team, and you are not replacing those goals.
And I'm not being funny.
It's scandalous.
Bale, it might have taken a long time for him to get going or whatever, or maybe whatever situation with Mourinho, that's another thing. But the matter of the fact is, when he did play, he was just another player we were getting loads of goals and assists from. It was a great outlet and something that Lucas and Bergwijn have not been able to do at all in the last year.
Yeah. Russ, let's come around to you. Substitution-wise, Spurs made a couple of changes as that game went on after conceding. They brought Hill on for Reguilon, Lo Celso on for Ndombele. Skip actually ended up playing left-back for Spurs again.
Too late.
I don't know if that was that definitely was a Nuno masterclass with Skip at left-back. But what did you make of those changes? Is it just simply too reactive rather than proactive for you, Russ?
Yes, there was no proaction at all. Yeah, it was too late in the game. Really, West Ham were just set up and they just decided, well, you're not going to score a goal and we're going to win the game 1-0. And of course, to them, it's a massive game for them. I don't feel this, tremendous desire to play West Ham every week and beat them every week like I do Arsenal. It's just the way it is. But I just thought the management of the game, as we've talked about already, the tactics, the formation is a bit weird, as I think Frank was saying, or it could have been George as well. I just think the whole thing, I was a mate of mine, he messages me on Twitter while we're watching the game, and I hand on heart, I sent him as the corner was coming in, I said, we're a bit, what's coming now, don't you?
Yeah, we all did.
I'm sorry to say it went in, and we all know that because we know our football club, and it was an awful goal to concede. And on the subject of corners, why can't we take them? They were dreadful today, and they're dreadful most weeks. We need a set piece coach, don't we?
They've been dreadful for years, Russ. Even Eriksen used to struggle to beat the first man on many occasions.
But everybody else manages to. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah. Let's talk about the fullbacks very quickly. Emerson Royale, he played well in the past couple of games, but he couldn't maintain the same levels up in East London as Frank picked up against a skillful side, Ben Rama at the back, and didn't have much impact going forward. George, with regards to Emerson Royale, do you have high hopes that he can go on to become that right back we crave? I always bring this back to, when we had Danny Rose and Carl Walker flying down the flanks. Ultimately, I think for Spurs, if we're going to have any success, that's where we had our real genuine posing threat. We had a real direct left back and right back really tearing into teams. We want to get back to that. With Royale, is it too early to make that judgment at the moment for you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just a bit too early because, first couple of games didn't look amazing. Then he did pretty well for the next couple. And then again today, not great. Well, in fact, I think he was the worst player on the pitch today, in my opinion. I think Frank said it earlier. I think or maybe Russ, I can't remember who, but the point of the fact that he just wasn't delivering any crosses. And we notice it every single game. He kind of gets forward and then instantly just passes back to Skip or Højbjerg, whoever's there. I haven't seen him do a delivery once, I don't think, into the box, which is a problem because if we're not going to have Lucas out wide there or whoever it may be, we're going to need that option to have a cross in there. And it might be the only way we get goals with our forwards. So there are some issues, but again, I don't want to judge a new player too soon. Yeah. New country. He looked good in moments, poor in others. Yeah. For me, it's just a wait and see sort of thing.
Yeah. Sergio Reguilon, let's come around to you on this, Frank, because, he did make some good runs down that left-hand side at times, put some crosses in, most notably the one you said earlier about the Kane header just before half-time and the one that Oliver Skip almost connected with minutes after that restart. The thing with him is what I find with Reguilon, and speaking to our good friend, as we know, Frank, Andy Costa, he drives him absolutely mad because, we've got a player there that has got an abundance of pace, but that final end product is always so frustrating with Reguilon. Do you think we are going to end up seeing him to be consistent at Tottenham? There's been reports, which I know have been shot down in flames, about potentially Real Madrid looking to activate that buyback clause. I would say if they've been watching him over the last 6 to 12 months, I think he's nowhere near the standard of what Real Madrid would be looking for. Am I right in saying that, do you think?
Yeah, he's another one. We've got so many players like that, like Ndombele, like Lucas, like Reguilon. They're so frustrating because in some certain games and parts of games, you see the quality they've got, but then they drift and go missing and they're erratic. And we've got so many players like that, just so inconsistent. And Reguilon's got all that pace. He's up against Ben Johnson today, who's a young kid. Obviously, the first choice right back for West Ham was out with an injury. I felt that's where we could possibly get some joy today with obviously Son and Reguilon with their pace, and we didn't exploit it nowhere near enough for me. And I think with Reguilon, he's so inconsistent. He's got all that pace. He can deliver the ball. We've seen it at times, but not consistently. I think 2 good crosses out of 8 attempted today, or 9. And he's just another player we've got like that in our squad that you don't know what you're going to get from them before a game. We haven't got many of them players who you could hand on heart say we're going to get 7 out of 10 for him every week. We haven't got many of them. And he's just another one that one week can be a 7 and the next week can be a 4. And he's got potential to be a fantastic player. I don't know, Rick. I can't answer that question, whether he's going to be a top player for us. For Sevilla, when they won the UEFA Cup Europa League,
it was phenomenal. Yeah,
he was one of the best left backs in Spain.
Yeah, if you speak to any Seville fans, they were going mad about him. They honestly were the praise for him was, they were loved him over there, absolutely loved him. So again, it's another one where you say they're frank the word potential. I mean, if ever a club was at a defining word about potential, that'd be Tottenham. Potential to do this, potential to do that. I mean,
enigmas. We're a squad full of enigmas, potential, inconsistent players, frustration.
We'll take those.
And as I said, we've got so many of these players, and it frustrates the life out of me, Rick.
Indeed. Oh, mate, we're all there with you. Eric Dyer defended well against the Hammers and produced some timely blocks and interceptions. And we mentioned Oliver Skip earlier with a good tackle on the edge of the area early on and made life difficult for his opponents in the middle of that pitch as usual, inches away from converting Reguilon's cross at the start of that second half. Russ, I want to ask you about Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who today I thought was uncharacteristically poor on the ball. He couldn't really find his intended target on a number of occasions. It wasn't his best day at the office. Do you think, Russ, what's really I'm worried about damaging Højbjerg is that we haven't got almost a like-for-like alternative to him. And we saw it last season. We ran him to the ground at the point where he ended up giving away, I think, 2 penalties in the space of 2 games. If you remember, I think the Everton Cup game. People have to give me the game after that as well. We gave away a penalty. I think maybe, was it Leeds? I'm trying to remember back now when it was. But I'm really worried that, by not having that alternative to Højbjerg, we're going to be in exactly the same position again. Do you agree?
Well, we got a squad of 25, but it is a bit threadbare at Tottenham, isn't it? In many areas, and that area, obviously, you're quite right, Ricky, is one of them, and this is the danger. He's one of our standout players, I think, Højbjerg, and he plays nearly every game, to be fair, and he gets battered and bruised, doesn't he? I mean, he took a real knock today. I thought he had a dead leg, but he carried on. We are going to run these players into the ground, and we do need backup in the right areas. And that's why, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, we need to ship a few out in the nicest possible way for them to pursue their football careers somewhere else and actually reinforce in these areas. This is what Paratici has come in for. And I'm presuming he's still happy doing what he's doing, but he's going to be the busiest man in North London. He is.
Yeah,
hopefully.
We hope he will be busy. We all hope he will be indeed. Yeah. Lucas Moura had another shot after a good turn in the box today, but didn't see much of the ball in that first half down his flank. Helped out defensively, but struggled when it came to his attacking plan. Hooked late on. Heung-min Son with some doggy work from the player midway through that first half to tee up Lucas after not having much of an impact prior to that. I mean, he did get himself in a number of good positions, Sonny, but in the second half, not having that final pass to him was lacking. And overall, a bit of a quiet day for the South Korean on a day where Spurs ultimately needed more. We did see Brian Hill go on to the left, but couldn't help the Spurs get back in the game late on. Steven Bergwijn coming on as a very, very late substitute. So ultimately, I say, that is how it panned out against West Ham. We are going to go for our final break of the show. Taking you into this break, you're going to hear from 2 of our Burnley podcasters for our listeners on audio. We've got the guys over at the Turfcast podcast and also the No Nay Never podcast that preview Burnley to come. Like I say, when we come back, we're going to do a quick 5 on Burnley, our thoughts on that and where we see ultimately Spurs going in terms of that Carabao Cup. For our viewing audience on YouTube, and thank you so much, nearly 500 of you watching us live. Honestly, never fails to amaze me the love out there for the Last Word on Spurs, for Spurs in general, on the back of what's been, let's say, tough day at the office. I fear, and I hope I'm wrong, there might be some tough days to come as well. Look ahead to the cup game now. So, okay, Burnley to come. And you know what's funny? People go mad at me saying, why is it so important to you? Do you know what? To me, this Burnley game is a hugely important game in Spurs' season. I said this earlier, and I'll reinforce the point that, you know, what Spurs can win as a club. And I said, when you look at the case in the Premier League where Spurs are at, Europa Conference League, let's be honest about it, we win that, we'll get bantered for it like there's no tomorrow. Then you've got the FA Cup and the League Cup. Two of Spurs' competitions where you feel, if we're going to be successful, these are the two. And like Phil says on the screen there, can we do it up on a wet Wednesday night in Burnley, if I can get my words out? And because Sean Dyche's men, they bowed out to eventual champions Man City in the fourth round of the Cup last year. This year they saw off big spending, expected Newcastle United on the third round in penalties, and then Rochdale to earn their spot against Spurs in this last 16. They've just come off the back of a 2-2 draw against Southampton, which many will probably say it's not a bad result. Russ, let's start with you. How important is this game to you? Spurs, Burnley, Carabao Cup?
It's a lot more important than the Europa Conference League, that's for sure. I think it's a difficult game for Spurs. Sean Dyche, you know, hell of a manager. Whatever you think about the style of play, I think I worry about this game because I think he'll relish, him and his players will relish playing Tottenham and where we are at the moment. I mean, if it didn't go our way, it would be hugely disappointing. And then to, you know, playing Manchester United at the weekend in the Premier League, which is going to be a huge game for obvious reasons for them, and it should be for us. If both those games went against us, well, then we have got a big problem. But I hope that we can come through it on a wet and windy, wet night in Burnley. Fingers crossed.
We're going to come back round you in a second, Russ, for your prediction. Let's go over to George. Do you know what? Like I say, it's going to be tough, George, up there, isn't it? You know, you never get an easy game at Burnley. I know we always get joked at by saying it's always a tough place to go. It does feel like as Spurs, we make it tough. You know, Mourinho, that game out there, we made that tough on that night. If you remember that in the Premier League last season. As we understand at the moment in terms of team news, and of course this may change in the next few days, Ben Mee is out for the moment with coronavirus, but it does remain to be seen whether he will recover in time for this game. We understand that he'll be out of his isolation period ahead of this game. So one to keep an eye on, obviously, a player for Burnley, Ben Mee, of course. How do you see this game going, George, before you reveal your prediction? Do you back Spurs to go there and put a performance in?
Well, I don't know about going putting a performance in after what I've seen from this week, but I think we're definitely going to play a bit of a weakened team because let's be real, I think full focus is going to be taking advantage of.
Can he though, George? You know, I must pick up on that. You know, we're saying a weakened team, but can he? And you look at the results, and you know, in terms of if Nuno's going to be successful, this is a competition where for me he's got to take it massively seriously.
I think he should take it seriously because we definitely do need to focus on getting a trophy. Because, like you said earlier on in the podcast, league's out of the question, completely out of the question. So something like the Carabao Cup, FA Cup, is definitely got to be a big focus. The problem is, if he then puts a full strength team against Burnley and then they're all knackered and we play terrible against Man U, then there's going to be callings for his head as well. And there's going to be complaints. There's just going to be complaints either way. He's not going to play a full strength first team against Burnley. But we definitely can't have a situation where we're not traveling without any of them because just in case we might need to bring them on. I always prefer starting a stronger team and then getting the lead and taking those players off. I've always preferred that, but no manager ever seems to do it. We always seem to wait until we're trailing before bringing on the likes of Kane and Son and whatever. It's going to be a tough one. I think it's a perfect game for Sean Dyche and Burnley to, again, take advantage of how poor we've been recently and the issues we have. So I'm really not expecting too much, but I do think, I agree with you. I think Carabao Cup's got to be a bit of a main focus this season.
Yep, I agree. Frank, let's come around to you. Apart from, like I say, Ben Mee, we understand Dyche has got a full squad to pick from at his disposal. What do you see in your intentions for you? How important is this game for you, Frank? I know you're back with me during the week. God bless you. For your sins of doing this. How important is it for you, the Carabao Cup, Frank?
Any trophy is important. I agree with Russ, not the Conference League. What does that get you? They both get you Europa at the end of the day. So
gets you back in the Europa League.
I want a domestic English trophy. It's been too long. We have to get this this run finished of 13 years. 2008, it's not good enough for a club like Spurs. We used to be the cup side back in the 80s, particularly. We haven't won an FA Cup in the Premier League era. We haven't won any trophy since 2008. It's embarrassing. However, we haven't got the squad to rotate and put two quality sides out. Like, obviously, we're miles away from Manchester City. I'm not using them as a barometer because with the backing they've got, it's unrealistic. But we're so shy on the quality and depth in this squad that it makes it hard for Nuno. I think it will be a mix and match. I think that he will consider personally, I just think he will consider Manchester United a more important game, which I do understand. And I believe that his mandate from the club is to finish in the top four over getting us a trophy. I truly believe that's what he's been in. That's the instruction. I think that's the messages the board will be giving him. We need to get back into the Champions League, revenue, etc. However, I'm a traditional football fan. There is nothing better than a day out at Wembley and seeing your team lift the trophy. I've been fortunate enough to see it twice in my lifetime. I've also been unfortunate enough to see a couple of cup final losses in stadiums. But that feeling of winning a cup at Wembley is beautiful. And I would love to win this League Cup. However, again, context, I don't think we've got the squad to juggle and mix. And I think Manchester United will be, again, in Nuno's eyes, the more important game. So we'll see. But it won't be an easy game up there. Burnley haven't exactly been setting the world on fire this season. Have they won a game in the league yet?
I think they're off the mark in the league. They're off the
No,
mark.
points-wise, during the week about have they actually won a game? So they're not exactly in vintage form.
No.
But if we can't go up to Burnley and beat them in the League Cup, then what does that say about us at the end of the day? And that's no disrespect to them, but they are floating around the bottom of the table. So we should be taking this seriously because we need a trophy. We're a laughing stock for the fact that we don't win trophies and cups. It's one of the biggest sort of mean banter things that's used against us. So why not try and go and win a cup? And it would be such a lift for this fan base if we finally won a trophy again.
Totally agree. Let's close the show with predictions. Frank, let's start with you.
Predictions for both games, Burnley and Manchester United.
We'll stick with Burnley for the moment. We'll do that. You'll do your prediction on Wednesday for Man United after we've reviewed it.
Okay. Predicting Spurs at the moment is a tough task, to be totally honest. But I think we should have enough to get past Burnley, and I'm going to predict a 3-1 win for Tottenham.
3-1 win for Tottenham, and like I say, Frank, we're back to see if that did come true on Wednesday night. Let's go for his sins. Let's come back round to George. George, prediction. What are we going for?
I think it's going to be 1-1 and then win in extra time. To be honest with you,
I think there is no extra time. I think we go straight to penalties.
Straight penalty. Okay, then penalties.
Straight to penalties.
I think Dyche is just going to set them up well enough to frustrate us, especially if we're not going to have a full strength team. So I'd say 1-1 in the 90, and then I guess a win on penalties if it's straight to pens.
I want to know the last time Spurs actually won 2 consecutive penalty shootouts in a season. There will be a record there somewhere. Yeah. And Nuno would be delighted to actually claim that record if that is one before he does get maybe the boot. Russ, let's come round to you. Prediction ahead of Burnley to come in the cup.
Let's be positive. 2-1. Harry Kane off the bench, 93rd minute winner.
I like that.
You want to be going, good on you, Harry.
I like that. Not the heart attack of penalties to come. Honestly, I feel a lot better now already. Therapy, like I say, out the way. Thank you so much. Russ, where can we find your elite work? Please tell us for our wonderful listener base. Where can we find your dulcet tones of Russ Williams? Where can we find you?
I'm working not so much on the football at the moment. I'm working on a series boxing fans may have heard. They'll love it. It is called Fight of My Life. Okay. I do it with Spencer Oliver. And we're putting together series 3 that's on Talk Sport from mid-November. We've got some big names: Joe Calzaghe, Carl Frampton, Bob Arum, the legendary American boxing promoter, and Michael Watson, which we've done and is awesome. So that's what I'm doing at the minute. And thank you for having me on. It's been such
pleasure.
a pleasure.
No, pleasure's been all ours. It's been lovely. Like I say, we look forward to having you back on throughout the season, Russ. Where hopefully things will be a little bit better in the Spurs camp. Fingers crossed, we hope. George, lovely having you on. George, where can we find all your content? Please tell us where we can find.
Yeah, appreciate it. Just George Achillia on everything on like YouTube, Instagram, all sorts of stuff. Trying to follow Spurs away, home, much as possible, doing vlogs, but hopefully they start getting a little bit more positive again soon. But just George Achillia on everything.
Amazing. And Frankie, coming around to you. We know you are home and away, although what they're doing to you at the moment, I'm not sure if they can keep doing you home and away the way they're treating you at the moment. Where can we find all your details, Frank? on the Twitter?
I'm back on Twitter. Unfortunately, I was removed at 70,000 followers on Twitter, as you know, Rick, for absolutely no reason, which is disappointing because I used to actually have a bit of a Spurs following on there. But I'm back on Twitter, as you can see, at Frank Major _. And I've just looked at some of the comments. I'm just going to quickly add to this. There's a few people saying you lot are so negative and all the rest of it. We've just been beaten already this season in 4 London derbies with an aggregate of 10-1. So if you expect me to come on after losing to West Ham when I'm surrounded by West Ham fans where I live in the area, then you're crazy, because that is not anything to be positive about, losing 4 derbies on the spin. So apologies, but I'm just being a realist.
I think I say, the important thing about the show is to try and reflect an overall balance of where we see Spurs. And I think we'll be kidding ourselves to sit here and say that everything is hunky-dory and everything's rosy. We've got to paint the picture of where we see things right now. I mean, a lot of people, like I say, have just seen as we say it. And, Slushy Deluxe on the screen says, good show, lads, just spitting the truth nuggets. That, as usual. As always, thank you so much for all your support. To Russ, to George, to Frank. Please, guys, keep safe, keep well. And I say, just a reminder, we are live, our first radio show back on national radio with the BBC Sport London on Monday evening. We're not sure what we've got in store, but my God, fingers crossed, we hope we'll be a bit more positively 24 hours later. Who knows what's to come? Is it a new manager? Who knows at all? But let's say, keep it real, keep safe, keep well. And as always,